let's be real for 1 second. Mobland doesn't exist without Tom Hardy. This is the Last Pick Show with Rahim Khan, and I'm sure a lot of you have been following the developing story that is Tom Hardy being fired, rehired, in talks regarding the Paramount television series Mobland. This story came out about... Okay, just a second. The reason why I even have any interest in this, because normally this is something for like the rag sheets, but the reason why I have interest in this story is the whole Palestine angle that was introduced. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this story, firstly, of course, Mobland is a series created by the brothers, the Butterworths. Yes, Butterworths. They also did that show called The Agency. And it stars, among others, Tom Hardy as Harry D'Souza, or H, who is a fixer for the crime family, the Harrigans, patriarch Pierce Brosnan, matriarch Helen Mirren, with son Paddy Considine, and a couple of others. Pretty decent show. I mean, it's not like fantastic, but I mean, it's fun. I've been watching it, and Tom Hardy, as always, is really good in it. Okay. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I don't know if it was the New York Post or Daily Mail or one of these sort of like, rumor mongers, but I mean, it emerged that, Tom Hardy had apparently been fired from the third season of Mobland. Of course, the first season concluded last year or something. Second season was in production. It also completed, I think shooting ended around March of this year, and it's going to be released at some point later this year. Season 3 was going to go in, I think it's in pre-production or whatever. So now, this was shocking because, yes, there are other A-listers, the likes of Brosnan and Helen Mirren. But I mean, let's be perfectly honest. The lead of this show, the whole reason this show even exists, is because of Tom Hardy. And I do not mean this as any disrespect for everybody else in this ensemble cast. But, I mean, it's about how he has to clean up after this batshit family runs wild in London. I mean, that is, I would say, the heart of the story. So hearing that you're firing your lead was something that I mean, sort of the rest of the internet were in shock about, were aghast, and also a little angry. Because then when we learned that it was for reasons that you wouldn't ordinarily fire somebody for, you smelled something was fishy. Now, apparently, according to a source, who the source is, as always, remains anonymous. We have no idea. But according to the source, Hardy was rubbing both the other A-listers on set, which I can only assume is Brosnan or Mirren, and was also clashing with, I think it's Jez Butterworth, one of the Butterworth brothers, and David Glasser, one of the producers. So apparently he was keeping, the other actors waiting for hours on end. He was holding up production, and he was clashing with Mr. Butterworth over certain script changes because he was giving his input, and, that led them to this decision that, we've got to let this guy go. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yes. And I think this was a bit of a hit job, because shortly thereafter, when this news emerged, there were hit pieces, and I'll call them hit pieces because in the media, they started sort of pushing out stories where, read about Tom Hardy's clashes with his other castmates on sets like Mad Max Fury Road and Lawless. Well, yes, it's very well documented that on Mad Max Fury Road, which was very early in his career, I mean, it's almost like almost 20 years old now, this story. A little less, but whatever. that he was a bit of a dick to Charlize Theron, his co-star in that movie. And I think, not certain, they did make up later on, even though it's very clear that his behavior was very unprofessional. And I think he was contrite about it. Definitely. They then cite his on-set fisticuffs with Shia LaBeouf. I'm laughing because this is fucking Shia LaBeouf. I watched this fantastic documentary and I recommend it to everybody who's interested. It's called Megadoc. It's about the making of Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And even in that, despite the fact that LaBeouf is hat in hand, he knows that if he screws this one up, he's not going to get another chance. Even on that set, he's still very difficult to work with. So, I mean, LaBeouf is like he's no character, witness. I mean, that guy is just horrible. Then they even cited, for example, Hardy's, I think it was his first role, it was breakout role, when he starred in Star Trek Nemesis. And in that, Patrick Stewart said that he was kind of awkward on set. And, he barely interacted with the rest of the cast and he'd always be in his trailer. And Hardy addressed that later on. He spoke about it and he was like, I was very awkward. I was almost uncomfortable because I was overwhelmed by the entire thing. Like, here I am. He is a young actor. I think prior to this, he was in a couple of scenes in Band of Brothers. But other than that, I mean, the guy didn't really do much. So I can understand how for a young actor it would have been overwhelming working with seasoned professionals like Patrick Stewart. But it's very clear that most of these, I'm not saying they're spurious, they're anecdotal at best. The only one that has weight to it is what happened on the set of Mad Max Fury Road, right? After the fact, this guy has been in sort of A-list project after A-list project, right? He's worked in television and film and with the biggest names out there. And yeah, I mean, maybe he has had, what's it called? Christian Bale levels of meltdown. We haven't heard of them. From whatever has been read, heard about Tom Hardy, it's that he's a genuine guy. People like him on set. And, when these hit pieces were coming out, people came out in defense. And these are just like you and me. These are people who have actually worked with him. And these are people, okay, so here's a couple. Um, yeah, here's one. This is an interesting one. Mobland Season 2 was majority filmed near me, Strand on the Green, Chiswick House, Chiswick Police Station. Tom Hardy was on set early doors, asked the mums who were doing school drop-offs, and often late into the evening. I spoke to scores of crew, some main actors, and a handful of extras, some of whom I'm still in contact with. There was never even a hint of this being an unhappy set, which seems very odd. Others have cited, for example, how I think on, what's it called, the production of Mobland, he offered to pay about £300,000 to carpenters who were working for the production, whose company apparently fell through, and he offered to pay them. So, I mean, he has very good word of mouth around him. But apparently, again, according to these sources, people kind of believe were in part the creators of the show, and then largely in part Helen Mirren's camp. They were putting out this sort of bad press, and the bad press was sources close to Paramount company, Mobland, blah, 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 production claimed negative stories surrounding Tom Hardy's on-set behavior was strategically leaked as internal discussions intensified about potentially moving on from him. According to multiple sources, there was belief within parts of the production that the series could continue without Hardy, including support from individuals connected to Helen Mirren's camp. Now, this is according to one of those sources. Any actor is frustrated when they're made to wait a couple of hours. I know she, Mirren, said to him a couple of times, "Come on, Tom, we've been here for ages, let's get on with it." But she's never appeared to be anti-Tom. Now, that was the narrative that was going on. Then, of course, you had this counter narrative come out from people who were like, no, he's a good guy. Then you had another angle to it, which I find both interesting as well as opportunistic, but I'm glad that they're capitalizing on this. And that was apparently the clash. This is, let me get out that particular quote. Where did it go? Helen Mirren and Tom Hardy are rumored to have fallen out over Israel and Palestine on the set of Mobland. A source said, another source, whilst discussing Londoners, Mirren mentioned how people don't realize the hurt being caused by the marches for Palestine, and Hardy laughed in her face. We know Helen Mirren is an avowed Zionist because many, many years ago, well, I mean, sort of recently, she starred as Golda Meir. And many, many years ago, as a 22-year-old, she visited Israel and stayed on a kibbutz. And she said this later on. "I saw Arabs being thrown out of their houses in Jerusalem, but it was just the extraordinary magical energy of a country just beginning to put its roots in the ground. It was an amazing time to be here." Most recently, we saw a video of a Londoner confronting Mirren and her husband, American director Taylor Hackford, and he calls her an evil Zionist bitch. Now, where this angle does kind of come from, and we can give it some credence, is that Paramount, as we know, is owned by the Ellisons, avowed Zionists, and we've already seen what they've done to CBS with the help of Barry Weiss, where they've gutted it of all, forget even pro-Palestinian voices, just sane sort of neutral voices. And we've also seen in Hollywood the backlash that actors who have been vocal about Palestine, for example, Melissa Barrera, Susan Sarandon, Javier Bardem, have faced for speaking up about this. So I wouldn't put it past the Ellisons, who we know are sort of trying to strong arm, blackball pro-Palestinian voices. We know what they're doing. So something like this, I am going to say, for the sake of at least my leanings, that yeah, Mirren, being the piece of shit that she is, kind of did orchestrate this, or maybe not, I don't know. But all of this kind of reached this crescendo where, and again, according to this post, growing public backlash, fan pressure, and controversy surrounding Mirren in the UK reportedly shifted the situation, leading Paramount and the show's producers to pivot towards reconciliation and damage control instead. I mean, Variety, I think it was almost like last week where Variety said that, yeah, this guy was done for, he was fired. But then you had again these conciliatory tones coming out, where then people went on to say, again, another production source. God damn these production sources. He's difficult, but he's a movie star. Tom likes to prepare. Apparently trying to explain why he would be in his trailer keeping, production on halt. The damage control part is interesting because I think a day after the video that was posted where, somebody, confronted her on the streets of London, on Helen Mirren's Instagram, I can't believe that with all the money that goes into production, with all the money that these actors and studios put into PR, they had the audacity to put out this. And you can see this post. So it's a picture of, what's it called? Hardy. And I'm laughing at the choice of font. I'm laughing at the lack of graphic design or aesthetic involved. I'm sure this is like some PR intern or even like a PR person calling up Mirren in the middle of the night and say, you know what, lady, sort your shit out, post on Instagram right now, and you'll note that even the comments have been turned off. And just put up something in support to show that everything's hunky dory. There is no falling out. Your machinations did not lead to this our star being fired from the show, and put something out. And so she did put something out, and it was the most awful. It makes me laugh simply because, and it's there. It's like the only post that she has posted in a while, and this reminds me of the time of remember "Love You Now and Always," Helen. Uh, it has like what 1,500 reposts, right? This reminds me of that time when I think, was it NASA or was it like the people over at the Large Hadron Collider or whatever? I don't know. There was a presentation and they're using Comic Sans, and everyone tore into them for their choice of font. So I mean, this is like this clearly shows Helen Mirren's age. That I don't know if she has children or grandchildren or young people around her, but I'm sure she could have asked them to, like, sort of notch something up that's better than this. And now apparently, I mean, sort of fast forward to now, we've gotten our first pictures of Tom Hardy since all of this, and apparently it was taken by, I don't know, TNZ or the one of these paparazzi type outlets. And, it's just Tom Hardy, Tom Hardy. It's just pictures. And then there was what's it called? Pictures of his wife Charlotte Riley alone at the He-Man, what's it called, premiere. Again, people trying to find meaning in any of this. There is no meaning in any of this. The fact of the matter is, maybe at some point in the future, we will learn what the actual reason for all of this was. But when so much rests upon a single person, and they are very frankly sinless, without fault, then I think, productions, showrunners, all of them really need to take second and consider what they're doing. Because I remember reading a lot of the comments and I felt the same way. I was like, wait a second. If, for example, they had, now I don't know what season 2 is like, but it's safe to say that I doubt they would have written the story in such a way for this guy to be, killed off or whatever, but I doubt they would have like ended season 2 on a note like that, where, they were leaving the door open. And even though, again, according to those blasted sources, I could think of 10 ways they could write him out, but they're not very elegant. It's a bit like the same way Yellowstone got rid of Kevin Costner. I never watched Yellowstone, and maybe this is a discussion I need to have with a Yellowstone fan, but I assume that with his departure, the show's still there and it has multiple spin-offs and whatnot. But I'm sure with Kevin Costner departing that show, it did lose fans. It hurt the show's numbers, as would this have. I mean, if they had gotten rid of Tom Hardy, I'm sure it would have hurt Mobland's chances. Just generally, I mean, people in the comments, I mean, all of these posts and stuff that I was reading, everyone was like, you know what, that's it. If he's not in season 3, we're going to end it with season 2. And I felt the same way. It wouldn't be the same without, Hardy aka H. And if it is truly that reason. Oh, and here's another thing that I forgot to mention. I mean, him laughing in her face over, the Palestine, the marches in Palestine, the marches for Palestine in London. That's not the only, I mean, extent of his support. He was one of the first who signed the Artists for Ceasefire petition to end the genocide in Gaza. Whereas Miran has been quiet, on, of course, on that fact, but she has gone on about how sort of, Tel Aviv is a city of life and creativity and Israel needs to stand forever. And she boycotted all of these artistic and sort of cultural boycotts of Israel. So, you know what, man? Fuck you, Helen Mirren. I'm firmly on Hardy's side. And if this is a win for him, which I hope it is, well, tough, I was going to say tough titties, but I mean, tough shit.